This is 7 most underrated Oscar-winning films of all time. Let's get into it. Number 1, Marty. As a 90-minute black and white film about a lonely Bronx butcher, produced for less than $350,000, Marty is the perfect example of an Oscar underdog. Small, unglamorous, and rooted in ordinary lives, it defied every expectation of what a Best Picture winner should be. Marty Paletti, played by Ernest Borgnine, is 34, unmarried, and living with his mother. At her insistence, he reluctantly attends a local dance hall, where he meets Clara, a shy chemistry teacher. Over the course of an evening, the two awkwardly connect, slowly imagining a life together. It's a simple story, yet deeply heartfelt. A meditation on loneliness, family pressure, and the quiet joys of finding connection in unexpected places. The film won acclaim for its authentic, relatable storytelling and for Borgnine's warm, vulnerable lead performance. Unlike Hollywood epics of the era, Marty relies on intimacy, character study, and human nuance rather than spectacle. Its honesty feels radical even decades later, proving that the most ordinary lives can carry extraordinary emotional weight. If a 90-minute tale of everyday life could overcome Hollywood expectations, how many overlooked stories might still deserve recognition today? And yet, Marty remains profoundly underrated. Its origins as a television play cast doubt on its legitimate claim as a prestige drama, while its modest budget and short runtime led many to dismiss it as minor. Its characters, neither glamorous nor sensational, were outside the Academy's usual taste. Over time, the film faded from cultural conversation, far less discussed than its contemporaries despite its historical significance. Its ordinary theme, once groundbreaking, now appears quaint to modern audiences, and its minimalist production offers no spectacle to make it rememberable in the way epics or musicals are. I think Marty is quietly revolutionary. It proves that empathy, intimate storytelling, and sincere performances can carry a film as far as any star-studded spectacle. Its charm lies in celebrating the overlooked, the ordinary, and the human, qualities often underestimated by both audiences and the Academy. If the Academy rewarded understated humanity once, could a modern Marty still surprise the Oscars today? And so, from understated intimacy, we move next to bold, controversial storytelling that shocked the Oscars with its X rating, proving that the Academy could still reward audacity in unexpected forms. Number 2, Midnight Cowboy. Breaking every Hollywood convention, Midnight Cowboy became the first and only X-rated film to win Best Picture at the Oscars, offering an unflinching, gritty look at New York's underbelly and telling the story of two unlikely companions trying to survive in a city that wants to chew them up and spit them out. At a time when nudity, prostitution, and homosexuality were considered scandalous, the film not only survived but thrived, forcing audiences to confront loneliness, poverty, and marginalization in ways few American films had dared. Behind the scenes, the production itself was a gamble. John Schlesinger, a gay Englishman and Hollywood outsider, adapted a controversial novel, while Jon Voight and Dustin Hoffman risked their reputations on roles that could have derailed their careers. Joe Buck, played by Voight, is a naive Texan who arrives in New York dressed like his childhood cowboy heroes, hoping to find success by hustling wealthy women. He quickly discovers that the city is far less welcoming than he imagined. In this harsh environment, he meets Ratso Rizzo, a limping, streetwise conman with dreams of escaping to Florida, played with scrappy charm and vulnerability by Hoffman. Together, they navigate poverty, homelessness, and the isolation of city life, forming a bond that becomes the emotional center of the film. Schlesinger's direction, combined with Waldo Salt's faithful adaptation of the novel, ensures that the story is as much about empathy, friendship, and survival as it is about sex or scandal. The central relationship between two marginalized outsiders is portrayed with honesty and tenderness, giving the film a humanity that resonates decades later. The performances of Voight and Hoffman are unforgettable, capturing both the vulnerability and delusion of their characters. Salt's screenplay places their evolving friendship front and center, creating an emotional narrative that balances moments of hope with the harsh realities of urban life. Despite its acclaim, Midnight Cowboy was initially underestimated. Its X rating limited distribution and scared away more conservative audiences, while early critics often dismissed the film as provoking, missing the emotional depth at its core. Cultural memory has tended to preserve moments like the famous "I'm Walking Here," seen while overlooking the quiet humanity of Joe and Ratso's relationship. Certain narrative detours, such as the Warhol Party and flashbacks to Joe's Texas childhood, can feel distracting, and the sexual and violent content, shocking at the time, may seem uneven to modern viewers. The soundtrack and montage sequences, while iconic, occasionally dilute the immediacy of the characters' experiences. Yet, at its heart, Midnight Cowboy is a triumph of empathy. The film's honest portrayal of loneliness, friendship, and survival allows viewers to feel deeply for people society often overlooks. If audiences once recoiled at nudity and implied homosexuality, how did this same film go on to earn Hollywood's highest honors? And could such an equivalent risk succeed in today's climate? So from two outsiders navigating a harsh urban world, we talk about a very different type of underdog, one who steps into the boxing ring to challenge the odds, the story of Rocky. Number 3, Rocky. If Marty proved that small, intimate stories could win Best Picture, Rocky proved they could do something even more improbable: defeat giants. On the surface, Rocky looked like the least important nominee of its year. A sentimental boxing movie written by an unknown actor, made for barely over $1 million and released with modest expectations. It lacked prestige, political urgency, and stylistic bravado. Yet in 1977, it pulled off one of the most shocking Best Picture upsets in Oscar history, beating films that many now regard as untouchable classics. At its core, Rocky is deceptively simple. Rocky Balboa is a small-time Philadelphia boxer barely surviving as a debt collector when he's offered a once-in-a-lifetime chance to fight the heavyweight champion. He knows he cannot win. His real goal is smaller and more human: to last the full distance and prove that his life amounts to something. As his tentative romance with the painfully shy Adrian unfolds, the film quietly shifts away from boxing spectacle and toward themes of dignity, self-respect, and perseverance. Victory is not defined by triumph, but by endurance. The film was praised for the emotional sincerity of Sylvester Stallone's performance and its grounded portrayal of working-class struggle. Its underdog narrative mirrored its own production story so closely that the film felt almost autobiographical, giving it a raw authenticity audiences connected with immediately. The music, imagery, and training sequences quickly became cultural shorthand, embedding Rocky into popular consciousness almost overnight. And yet, at the time, Rocky was widely underestimated. Critics often dismissed it as populist entertainment rather than serious art. Its open sentimentality felt retrograde during the height of the new Hollywood era, when cynicism, ambiguity, and formal experimentation were prized. Stallone's lack of pedigree further contributed to the perception that the film was unimportant, an inspirational crowd pleaser, not a work of cinematic ambition. That perception only deepened when placed next to the films it beat. Taxi Driver was redefining American cinema through Scorsese's unflinching vision of alienation and De Niro's portrayal of Travis Bickle. Network offered razor-sharp satire that seemed intellectually prophetic. All the President's Men captured the post-Watergate zeitgeist with journalistic rigor, and Bound for Glory carried the weight of artistic respectability. Against these films, Rocky looked lightweight, less daring, less political, and less formally innovative. The key criticism that Rocky mistook sentiment for substance and comfort for complexity has endured, but that critique misses what the film was actually doing. Rocky didn't hide its heart, and that openness was mistaken for weakness. Its power lies in its sincerity and its refusal to be ironic at a moment when irony was currency. So, if emotional honesty could be dismissed as simple in the 70s, how often do we in these modern times undervalue films that connect before they impress? And how many quiet victories do we overlook because they don't announce themselves as important? From a populist underdog beating the intellectual elite, the story now moves to something quieter still: a family drama that defeated one of the most revered masterpieces in American cinema. Number 4, Ordinary People. Some Oscar wins are controversial because the winner was bad. Ordinary People is controversial because it wasn't flashy enough to defend itself. Forever remembered as the film that robbed Raging Bull, it has become the Academy's most convenient scapegoat, defined not by what it achieved, but by what it beat. Over time, that narrative hardened into conventional wisdom, turning a deeply felt, critically admired drama into a punchline for cinephiles who judge history backward rather than meeting the film on its own terms. At its core, Ordinary People is a story about a family that looks intact but is quietly collapsing. The Jarretts live in an affluent suburb, insulated by comfort but undone by grief after the accidental death of their eldest son and the suicide attempt of their younger one, Conrad. As Conrad struggles with guilt, depression, and trauma, his parents move in opposite emotional directions. His father, Calvin, reaches outward, desperate to connect and understand. His mother, Beth, retreats inward, clinging to control, appearances, and emotional denial. The film isn't about healing so much as it is about the damage caused when grief is refused rather than faced. What distinguished Ordinary People at the time was its restraint. Robert Redford's directorial debut avoids grand statements or melodramatic confrontations, trusting silence to carry the weight of emotion. Mary Tyler Moore's performance as Beth remains the film's most unsettling achievement. Cast against her famously warm television persona, Moore delivers a portrait of maternal coldness that rejects likability entirely, turning emotional absence into a form of quiet cruelty. Timothy Hutton's fragile, searching performance grounds the film's empathy, while Donald Sutherland's overlooked turn gives the story its moral ache. Yet that craftsmanship was later mistaken for safety. Because the film was emotionally controlled, it was labeled unambitious. Because it was accessible, it was deemed conventional. And because it beat Raging Bull, a film whose ferocity, formal daring, and influence only grew with time, Ordinary People was retroactively cast as the villain. Comparison replaced context, but in 1980, the win made sense. Raging Bull was divisive, punishing, and commercially underwhelming. Ordinary People connected powerfully with critics, audiences, and guilds, arriving at a moment when conversations around grief, PTSD, and mental health were just entering the mainstream. The lasting irony is that Ordinary People didn't lose its reputation because it failed. It lost it because history decided to love something else more loudly. And that raises an uncomfortable question. If a film's legacy is shaped more by comparison than by context, how many deserving winners have been quietly rewritten as mistakes? And so, from a misunderstood family tragedy blamed for denying a masterpiece, the story now shifts to a thunderous historical epic whose victory stunned even its own supporters. Number 5. Braveheart. While Ordinary People is remembered for not being able to defend itself, Braveheart is remembered for audacity. Everyone expected Apollo 13 to win Best Picture in 1996, yet Mel Gibson's raucous Scottish epic pulled off one of the most shocking victories in Academy history. Unlike typical snubs, this wasn't about politics or manipulation, it was a genuine miscalculation of the voters' hearts. Braveheart follows William Wallace, a Scottish commoner who rises to lead a rebellion against English tyranny. After witnessing the murder of his family and childhood sweetheart, Wallace channels grief into rage, leading ragtag Scottish forces to fight for freedom. The film blends personal tragedy, epic battles, and political intrigue into a sweeping narrative about courage, sacrifice, and resistance. The film is praised for its cinematic scope, with the Scottish Highlands rendered in stunning visuals, immersive battle sequences, and meticulous production design. James Horner's emotionally charged score elevates every moment, while Gibson's direction keeps the chaos and spectacle grounded in personal stakes. Though melodramatic at times, the story resonates with themes of freedom, heroism, and resilience. Yet it was underestimated. Critics dismissed it as an action-heavy historical epic rather than a prestige drama. Historical liberties, antique costumes, invented romances, and open-field versions of famous battles drew derision. Its violence and nationalist undertones made it seem unsophisticated, and it arrived in the Oscars race with minimal precursor momentum, securing only Best Director at the Golden Globes. Apollo 13, with its technical mastery, true story gravitas, and ensemble acting, seemed unbeatable. Sense and Sensibility offered literary sophistication and Golden Globe acclaim. Against these contenders, Braveheart appeared flawed, loud, and unlikely to triumph. The key to its win lay in unexpected alignment. With neither Apollo 13 nor Sense and Sensibility receiving Best Director nominations, the traditional picture director link faltered. Academy voters, drawn to emotional resonance and epic scope, embraced Gibson's visceral storytelling. The film's humanity, its universal story of struggle, and sheer cinematic sweep proved irresistible. If Oscar history is shaped by timing, underdog appeal, and emotional impact, how many winners are quietly rewritten in hindsight as undeserving? And so we move from a misunderstood, battle-heavy epic that stunned contemporaries to a divisive cultural landmark oscillating between admiration for craft and critique for excess. Number 6. Spotlight. Some Best Picture wins are flashy, loud, and impossible to ignore. Others are quietly brilliant, leaving their mark through subtlety, craft, and moral weight. In 2015, Spotlight exemplified the latter. Up against visually stunning, star driven, or culturally buzzed films, Tom McCarthy's understated journalism drama emerged as one of the most unpredictable Oscar winners in recent memory. The victory surprised many observers, but for Academy voters, it made perfect sense. The film chronicles the Boston Globe's investigative team as they uncover systemic sexual abuse by Catholic priests and the decades long cover ups that protected them. The narrative follows reporters poring over documents, conducting interviews, and relentlessly pursuing the truth, demonstrating the immense societal importance of journalism. Its tension comes not from explosions or action sequences, but from the ethical stakes of confronting powerful institutions, making its restrained, procedural approach gripping in its own right. Critics praise Spotlight for its ensemble acting, led by Mark Ruffalo, Michael Keaton, Rachel McAdams, and Liev Schreiber, whose performances combined authenticity with deep emotional resonance. McCarthy's direction, marked by naturalistic lighting, subtle camera work, and minimal score, amplified the gravity of the story, allowing the investigative process itself to carry dramatic weight. The film's ethical and societal significance, highlighting investigative journalism as a vital check on power, further distinguished it from the competition. Spotlight faced formidable rivals. Alejandro G. Iñárritu's The Revenant was a visually audacious survival epic, boasting Leonardo DiCaprio, 12 nominations, and momentum from BAFTA and Directors Guild wins. Adam McKay's The Big Short offered a witty, star-studded examination of the 2008 financial crisis, while George Miller's Mad Max, Fury Road, dazzled with technical innovation and kinetic spectacle. Despite lacking marquee names, visual spectacle, or high-octane action, Spotlight leveraged universal respect, moral clarity, and ensemble mastery to triumph, proving that substance can surpass flash. Yet the film was underestimated in many circles. It won only Best Picture and Best Original Screenplay, lacked quotable moments or iconic imagery, and its heavy subject matter and restrained storytelling caused it to fade quickly from cultural conversation. The big question today is, how did a film about office interviews and document reviews win Best Picture amid cinematic showstoppers? Well, it did so by uniting voters around moral resonance, understated excellence, and quiet competence. And from Spotlight's quiet triumph, we go back to the post-war reflection of an era modern times have deemed forgotten. Number 7. The Best Years of Our Lives. Some Best Picture winners are celebrated for decades, others fade quietly from cultural memory. William Wyler's The Best Years of Our Lives belongs to the latter category. Upon its release in 1946, it was a critical and commercial triumph, becoming the highest-grossing film of the year in both the United States and the United Kingdom. It won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Frederick March, Best Supporting Actor for Harold Russell, Best Film Editing, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Original Score. In addition, Russell received an honorary Oscar, making him the only actor to win 2 Academy Awards for a single performance. Despite this immediate success, the film has since slipped from the mainstream consciousness, overshadowed by other classics such as Casablanca, Gone with the Wind, and The Godfather. The Best Years of Our Lives tells the story of 3 World War II veterans, Al Stevenson, Freddie, Derry, and Homer Parrish, returning to civilian life in a small Midwestern town. The film confronts PTSD, alcoholism, unemployment, and the profound challenges of reintegration with a realism that was unprecedented for its era. Wyler's own experience as a decorated Air Force veteran lent the film authenticity, while producer Samuel Goldwyn's decision to cast actual amputee Harold Russell broke Hollywood taboos around disability representation. The narrative avoids battlefield heroics in favor of exploring the often ignored aftermath of war, showing the personal and societal costs of combat on returning soldiers. Critically, the film was lauded for its humanizing insight, deep-focused cinematography by Greg Toland, and ensemble cast performances that balance restraint with emotional resonance. Its most affecting moments, such as Homer removing his prosthetic hooks before bed, reveal vulnerability and intimacy rarely captured on screen. The film's realistic style, lack of flashy set pieces, and quiet, cumulative, emotional impact made it less immediately iconic than more visually or narratively spectacular competitors, contributing to its eventual fading from popular memory. Political factors also played a role. During the Red Scare, writer Robert E. Sherwood was investigated for alleged communist sympathies, temporarily chilling the film's reputation in the 1950s. Over time, generational distance further dulled its resonance. Viewers without first-hand experience of World War II found the context less immediate, and the lack of quotable dialogue or iconic imagery limited its ongoing cultural presence. Yet the film's enduring power is unquestionable. It pioneered realistic depictions of working-class Americans, intimate portrayals of disability, and the complex psychological effects of war. Preserved in the National Film Registry and honored on the AFI's 100 Greatest American Films list, The Best Years of Our Lives remains a profound study of homecoming, resilience, and human dignity. Its quiet brilliance ensures that even decades later, it continues to offer modern audiences a timeless perspective on the cost of war and the struggle to return to life at peace. Taken together, these 7 films force us to rethink what underrated actually means. They weren't overlooked because they lacked qualities. They were underestimated because they didn't fit the moment's expectations. What connects them is resilience. Each one survived skepticism, bias, or indifference long enough to be recognized anyway. Their victories remind us that Oscar races are shaped as much by doubt as by confidence, and that the films most people don't see coming are often the ones that linger the longest. Revisiting these winners doesn't weaken them. It simply asks us to look closer. So, which of these still holds up for you and which surprises you most? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, like the video and subscribe, and we'll keep questioning Hollywood history together.